to conclude a partial agreement without Egypt to launch the first filling process of the Renaissance Dam in July. Last February, Sudan did not sign a draft agreement prepared by the U.S. Treasury in Washington, saying any deal should be accepted by the three parties. However, this did not happen because Ethiopia was absent. A statement from Sudanese Prime Minister's office said Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok has already informed Cairo and Addis Ababa on Khartoum's position. The current stance by Sudan complicates talks aimed at resolving a standoff among the three nations on the sharing of Nile River waters and Ethiopia's push for the completion of the Grand Renaissance Dam. All right, let's get more details on this. We have CgTN's Gerum Chala joining us live from Addis Ababa and Adel Al-Marui in Cairo. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you both to Africa Live. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us. Let's start with you, Gerum. Sudan says no to Ethiopia, while Ethiopia says it has responded to Egypt's complaints before the UN Security Council. How does Sudan's position affect Ethiopia's plans for filling the dam, Gerum?
As you remember, since the failed Washington, D.C. negotiations between Ethiopia, Egypt and Sudan, Ethiopia's position has been clear. And time and again, Ethiopian authorities, including the Prime Minister himself, the Foreign Affairs Minister and the Water, Irrigation and Energy Ministers have been saying, look, we're going to go ahead and continue with our plan of constructing the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. By the way, is now at a 73% completion. And then also we're going to continue with the plan of filling the dam in July. So this position has been consistent and persistent since that time of the Washington, D.C. failed agreement. Sudan's refusal at the moment, I can say, and to answer your question, is not going to affect any single plan of Ethiopia, because the authorities are saying, look, the next few months are going to be time for preparation, and when July comes, which is the rainy season in this country, we're going to go ahead and fill the dam. The reason being that this is an Ethiopian dam, this is a dam that's being constructed by Ethiopian resource and effort, and it is very vital for us to complete it. So there is nobody can stop us from filling this dam. So I think Sudan's position is one thing to consider, but Ethiopia's position remains to be the same, and the filling in July will continue.
All right, Gerum, don't go away. We've got a couple more questions for you. Thanks for that insight. But let's get Adel Al-Marui into this conversation. Adel, how does Sudan's position help Egypt's case against Ethiopia?
So in terms, if we speak legally, it doesn't really change a lot. Sudan has been, since the beginning, trying to take more or less an unbiased stance in that series of negotiations. Let's not forget that a couple of months back, Sudan has rejected an Egyptian draft resolution at the Arab League, trying to get unanimous Arab support to its rights in the Nile water share and stand against Ethiopia's filling of the reservoir in July without reaching any agreement. And Sudan did not sign on that resolution and showed its objection to it. So Sudan has been taking that similar position. It wants the three nations to take unanimous agreement over all articles of the Nile water agreement before proceeding and before doing anything. And that's why the polarization efforts that has happened, attempts from Egypt and now from Ethiopia, both have failed from the Sudanese perspective. But in terms of technical concerns, Sudan's announcement does support the Egyptian concerns. In the statement announcing the rejection to Ethiopia's request for an agreement on the filling, Sudan said that there are still a lot of issues to be considered, among them the environmental and the social impact of the dam, the security measures and safety measures taken at the dam, and also, and more importantly, the coordination mechanism between the three countries on the operation of the dam. So all of that is among the concerns that Egypt has been raising, and Egypt has been wanting to have agreement upon from the three countries before the filling begins.
All right. Thanks a lot for that, Adel. Let's get Gerum right back into this conversation. It's right back at you, Gerum Chala. What is Ethiopia doing to address Egypt and Sudan's concerns?
So the first and the most important one, and again, the most persistent and the continuous Ethiopia's effort to address the concerns by Egyptian authorities or Sudanese authorities on the people in the two countries is continuous transparency, how the dam is being built, what kind of progress there is, what kind of effects it has in the region, and also in the water resource that Egypt, for instance, talks about of environmental situations, or if drought season comes, what are we going to do? So continuous information has been delivered to these countries, and that's according to Ethiopian authorities, who are on top of the construction of the Grand Renaissance Dam. The second is communication. Whenever they are meeting, Ethiopia has been offering first-hand information for these countries and their people, as to show them that there is no hidden agenda of affecting any country, a riparian country, most importantly Egypt and Sudan. In the case of Sudan, Sudan has been a supporter of Ethiopia's notion, Ethiopia's plan of building the Grand Renaissance Dam. Why? Because of two most important reasons. One, this dam, when it is completed, is going to provide a lot of energy, electricity, which Sudan wants it so bad for its development and day-to-day lives. Second, Sudan has been affected for a long time because of the flood that comes from the Nile, and this dam is going to regulate the water flow. So this is also a potential concern for Sudan. Former Sudanese President Omar Hassan al-Bashir himself was even saying that we have to even invest on the construction of the Grand Renaissance Dam because it is equally important for us. Now, this difference by present Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok is not a big difference according to Ethiopian authorities, and which can be, filled, the gap that is going to be filled with a lot of discussion to come in a near future. So this kinds of transparent, consistent communication, delivery of information is what Ethiopia is doing for the two countries, so that they can be comforted, and also they can also understand that there is no hidden agenda to affect none of these countries, but development is the priority here in the region.
All right, Gerald and Charla, very interesting points you have made there. I guess, Adel El-Maroui, you get my final question. Adel, from Egypt's standpoint, what is the biggest pending issue that must be addressed right now on this Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam?
So primarily Egypt's concern now is not about sharing information or the transparency of the steps preceding that Guillaume has just mentioned, but Egypt's prime concern is that steps are taken to show that what the concerns Egypt and Sudan have are taken into consideration. That is, there is an agreement before proceeding and putting both Sudan and Egypt into a factual position where nothing can change except accepting what Ethiopia is proceeding with without taking into consideration all the aspects that they've mentioned. Egypt is now primarily concerned, and what Egypt really wants is basically to abide to the agreements reached in the negotiations that has been taking place for months in Washington, D.C., which Washington itself has stated that it is a fair base for an agreement that should suit everyone without imposing any harm. The initial agreements, and by the way, this is when Egypt has showed that it is willing, or it is accepting Ethiopia to start the filling during the wet season or the rainy season, as Guillaume mentioned, which starts in July. But Ethiopia has not signed that agreement and has not accepted the rest of the terms in it, and this is what Egypt primarily is concerned about. So these, if basically the Washington agreement is signed and fulfilled and everyone abides to it, Egypt's all concerns that Egypt have will fade away. Other than that, it is fearing that when the filling of the dam starts, its share of the water will be impacted, and Egypt already is at water scarcity stage. It has water poverty according to the regulations and the standards by the United Nations itself. So any additional deficiency in the water resources, and the Nile is the prime one, the country will suffer economically. Its agriculture infrastructure could collapse from any manipulation in that volume of water.
All right, let's leave it there for now. Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you both for joining us here on Africa Live and speaking to us, Gerum Chala and Adel El-Maroui. Thank you for your insight.